Rebecca Corium, a bright and ambitious 24-year-old from Chester, England, was always drawn to adventure. Growing up in a close-knit family, she was known for her love of the outdoors, her compassionate nature, and her desire to make a difference in the world. Her role as a youth counselor aboard Disney Cruise Line's Disney Wonder seemed to be the perfect fit, a job that allowed her to work with children while exploring exotic destinations. For Rebecca, it was more than a career, it was a dream come true. The Disney Wonder, a luxurious cruise ship catering to families, was a floating beacon of joy. Guests came aboard to immerse themselves in the enchantment of Disney, and for the crew, it was a chance to be part of that magic. Rebecca's journey began with excitement and promise, but what started as a dream adventure would soon spiral into one of the most haunting maritime mysteries ever recorded. Rebecca's friends and family described her as a beacon of kindness and positivity. She was the type of person who always had time for others, whether it was helping a friend through a rough patch or making a child smile on the ship. Her charisma was infectious, and she had a natural way of putting people at ease. Her role on the Disney Wonder was demanding but fulfilling. She worked tirelessly to ensure the children in her care had an unforgettable experience. From organizing games to offering a comforting presence when kids felt homesick, Rebecca went above and beyond. Her radiant smile became a hallmark of her personality, one that endeared her to coworkers and guests alike. But behind that smile, was there something more? Some of Rebecca's closest friends would later reflect on subtle moments, times when she seemed distracted or overwhelmed. Was there an unspoken burden she carried, hidden beneath the cheerful exterior that everyone adored? It was March 21st, 2011, and the Disney Wonder was a hub of excitement as it cruised off the coast of Mexico. The ship's expansive decks teemed with families soaking up the sun, children chasing Disney characters, and crew members ensuring the magic never faltered. Among them was Rebecca Corium, busy with her usual duties. The day had started like any other for Rebecca, a steady rhythm of smiles, care, and professionalism. Yet, unbeknownst to those around her, the course of her life and the lives of everyone who knew her was about to take an inexplicable turn. As the ship pushed further into the calm, open waters, the atmosphere aboard was jubilant, but behind the scenes, something unsettling was brewing. In the early hours of March 21st, CCTV cameras recorded the last confirmed sighting of Rebecca. The footage shows her in a crew-only corridor near the ship's lounge area at approximately 5:45 in the morning. She was on the phone, leaning against a wall. To anyone watching, she seemed troubled, her expression tense, her movements subdued. The conversation, which lasted only a few moments, has since become one of the case's most enduring enigmas. Who was on the other end of the line? Was it a friend, a coworker, or someone else entirely? And what had left Rebecca so visibly distressed? Shortly after hanging up, Rebecca stepped out of view of the camera. That was the last time anyone saw her. What happened in the moments that followed remains a mystery that haunts investigators and her family to this day. Rebecca Corium was a model employee known for her dedication and punctuality. When she didn't report for her scheduled shift later that morning, her coworkers were surprised. At first, they brushed it off. Perhaps she had overslept after a demanding day or wasn't feeling well. But as the hours ticked by with no sign of her, their worry deepened. Attempts to contact Rebecca through the ship's internal communication system went unanswered. Concerned colleagues visited her cabin, expecting to find her resting or unwell, but they were met with an unsettling scene. Her belongings were neatly arranged, her uniform was folded and ready for the day, and there was no indication she had planned to leave for an extended period. The atmosphere shifted from mild concern to alarm as it became increasingly clear Rebecca was missing. With no sign of Rebecca in her cabin or usual work areas, the crew initiated a ship-wide search. The Disney Wonder, a vast vessel with over 10 decks, became the focus of an intense operation. Crew members and security personnel scoured every corner, from guest staterooms and restaurants to engine rooms and storage areas. The ship's public announcement system was used to call for Rebecca, but there was no response. Areas inaccessible to passengers, such as maintenance rooms and restricted zones, were meticulously checked. Even lifeboats and exterior decks were inspected for any clues to her whereabouts. Despite their exhaustive efforts, Rebecca was nowhere to be found. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. The realization dawned slowly but heavily on the crew. Something far more serious than a simple misunderstanding or oversight had occurred. During the search, a crew member discovered a pair of flip-flops near the edge of Deck 5, an outdoor area not frequently used by staff. The flip-flops were believed to belong to Rebecca, sparking immediate concern that this location might hold the key to her disappearance. Deck 5 was an open-air deck, situated near railings overlooking the ocean. It was not a place Rebecca would have routinely visited in the early hours of the morning, especially while off duty. The placement of the flip-flops raised a chilling possibility. Had Rebecca fallen or been pushed overboard? However, Rebecca's family would later dispute that the flip-flops were hers, noting differences in size and wear patterns. This discrepancy raised unsettling questions. Could this discovery have been staged, or was it a case of mistaken identity? The flip-flops, instead of providing clarity, added another layer of mystery to Rebecca's already puzzling disappearance. When Rebecca's family was informed of her disappearance, their world was shattered. Mike and Ann Coriam, Rebecca's parents, were overcome with a mix of devastation and determination. They immediately flew to Los Angeles, where the Disney Wonder docked after completing its journey. Upon boarding the ship, they hoped to find details that might explain how their daughter could vanish aboard a tightly controlled and monitored vessel. But instead of transparency, they were met with vague explanations and incomplete accounts. The ship's staff provided little information about Rebecca's final moments, and her cabin had already been cleaned and prepared for another occupant. For the Coriums, this was a bitter blow. How could a corporation as meticulous as Disney allow such critical evidence to be disturbed? With more questions than answers, they were left to navigate a labyrinth of bureaucracy and silence, determined to uncover the truth about what had happened to their beloved daughter. Disney's handling of Rebecca Corium's disappearance was swift, but its actions raised eyebrows among many observers. Shortly after Rebecca was reported missing, her cabin was cleaned, her belongings were packed away, and the room was prepared for the next guest. This move, while routine under normal circumstances, struck Rebecca's family as careless or even deliberate. The Disney Wonder continued its cruise itinerary with barely a pause. Guests on board were kept largely in the dark about the incident, and life aboard the ship resumed as if nothing had happened. To Rebecca's family and critics alike, this response felt cold and calculated, as if the company prioritized its reputation over uncovering the truth. The lack of transparency deepened suspicions. Why would Disney allow such critical evidence to be compromised? Was it an attempt to avoid bad publicity, or was there something more sinister being hidden? These questions would linger long after the ship docked. The Disney Wonder was registered in the Bahamas, meaning the investigation into Rebecca's disappearance fell under Bahamian jurisdiction. While this arrangement was technically legal, it presented significant challenges. The Bahamian authorities sent a single officer to investigate, a fact that raised serious concerns about the thoroughness of the inquiry. Critics argued that Disney's global influence and the Bahamas' reliance on the cruise industry for economic support created a conflict of interest. Could the investigation have been intentionally limited to protect Disney's reputation? This jurisdictional complication also meant that Rebecca's family had little access to official updates or the investigative process. The lack of communication left them feeling shut out, while the investigation itself seemed cursory at best. To many, it appeared as though the system had failed Rebecca, leaving her disappearance shrouded in mystery and unanswered questions. The last known image of Rebecca, captured on CCTV, shows her leaning against a wall in a crew-only area of the Disney Wonder. She is on the phone, her body language tense, her expression visibly upset. This brief moment, recorded in the early hours of the morning, has become one of the most perplexing elements of her disappearance. To this day, the identity of the person on the other end of the line remains unknown. Disney has not disclosed any details about the call, citing privacy concerns and the ongoing investigation. Was Rebecca speaking with a colleague, a friend, or someone outside the ship? The contents of that conversation are equally mysterious. Was she seeking help? Was she involved in an argument? Or was this a routine call that took a sudden and unexpected turn? Many believe the answers to Rebecca's disappearance could lie in that phone call, but with no transparency from Disney, this critical piece of evidence remains shrouded in secrecy. In the absence of clear evidence, the official narrative put forth by Disney and Bahamian authorities suggested that Rebecca may have fallen overboard. They proposed that she might have accidentally slipped or climbed over the railing of Deck 5, where her flip-flops were found. But this explanation failed to satisfy Rebecca's family or the public. Her parents were adamant. Rebecca was safety conscious and would not have ventured into such a dangerous area, especially in the early hours of the morning. The ship's railings were designed to prevent accidents, making it unlikely she could have fallen unintentionally. Furthermore, no witnesses reported seeing Rebecca near the railings, and there was no physical evidence such as scuff marks or damaged railings to support the theory. To her family, the idea of an accidental fall seemed like an easy way to close the case without addressing the possibility of foul play or negligence. As days turned into weeks following Rebecca's disappearance, whispers of foul play began to circulate. For some, the idea that a young, healthy, and safety-conscious woman could accidentally fall overboard seemed far-fetched. Could someone on board the Disney Wonder have been responsible for what happened to her? One theory suggested that Rebecca might have been targeted by a fellow crew member. Life aboard a cruise ship can be intense, with long hours, close quarters, and high-pressure interactions. Tensions between staff are not uncommon, leading some to wonder if Rebecca had been involved in a dispute that escalated tragically. Others speculated that a passenger could have played a role. Cruise ships, while often perceived as safe, are not immune to crime. With thousands of passengers on board, anonymity can be a dangerous asset. Could Rebecca have crossed paths with someone who intended to do her harm? Adding to the intrigue, Rebecca's family reported hearing rumors of previous altercations among crew members, though no official records were shared. Without concrete evidence or witness testimony, these theories remained frustratingly out of reach. The lack of answers only deepened the suspicion that something far more sinister than an accident had taken place. As speculation about foul play grew, Disney's response to Rebecca's disappearance came under intense scrutiny. Critics accused the company of prioritizing its brand image over transparency and accountability. Disney's handling of the situation raised numerous red flags. Rebecca's family was not allowed full access to the ship during their visit, and they were given limited information about the ongoing investigation. The CCTV footage of Rebecca's last moments, while shared with the family, was never released publicly, leaving many to question what else the cameras might have captured. Adding to the controversy was Disney's decision to clean Rebecca's cabin and resume the cruise itinerary shortly after her disappearance. This move, seen by many as premature, potentially compromised crucial evidence. Was it merely corporate protocol, or was there a deliberate attempt to erase any traces of what had happened? Further fueling suspicion was the lack of cooperation from Disney regarding inquiries into the case. Requests for interviews with staff and access to ship logs were either denied or met with resistance. To critics, this behavior painted a picture of a corporation more concerned with protecting its pristine reputation than uncovering the truth. The combination of silence, secrecy, and swift action to return to business as usual left many wondering, was there something Disney didn't want the world to know about Rebecca Corium's disappearance? In the absence of concrete evidence, speculation about Rebecca's mental health began to emerge. Some theorized that her disappearance could have been intentional, suggesting she might have been struggling emotionally. Cruise ship life, while exciting, can be isolating and stressful. For some, the long hours and time away from home take a toll. However, Rebecca's family vehemently rejected this narrative. They described her as a grounded, happy young woman who was thriving in her role aboard the Disney Wonder. She had recently visited home and appeared excited to return to her job. Her friends and colleagues echoed similar sentiments, recalling no signs of depression or emotional distress. To her family, this speculation was not only hurtful, but also a distraction from what they believed was the real issue: a lack of accountability and transparency in the investigation. They insisted that Rebecca had no reason to harm herself, and any suggestion otherwise felt like an attempt to shift focus away from what truly happened aboard the ship. Mike and Anne Coriam, devastated by the loss of their daughter, quickly transformed their grief into determination. From the moment they were informed of Rebecca's disappearance, they became relentless advocates for uncovering the truth. They traveled to the United States to meet with Disney representatives and boarded the Disney Wonder to see where Rebecca had last been seen. However, their efforts were met with frustration. Critical areas of the ship were off limits to them, and the answers they sought were vague and incomplete. Refusing to accept the narrative of an accidental fall, the Coriums pushed for an independent investigation. They lobbied British and international authorities to intervene, highlighting the jurisdictional issues that plagued the case. They also worked tirelessly to keep Rebecca's story in the public eye, speaking to the media and raising awareness about the lack of safety and accountability aboard cruise ships. Despite their efforts, answers remained elusive. For Mike and Anne, the fight for justice was not just about their daughter, it was about ensuring no other family would endure the pain of losing a loved one to the vast, unregulated waters of the high seas. The investigation into Rebecca Corium's disappearance was assigned to Bahamian authorities, as the Disney Wonder was registered in the Bahamas. However, from the very beginning, their inquiry was plagued by criticism. Only a single police officer was dispatched to the ship, a decision that many viewed as inadequate for such a serious case. The investigation appeared rushed and incomplete. Key witnesses, including crew members and passengers, were either not interviewed or provided only cursory statements. Potentially crucial areas of the ship, such as the location where Rebecca's flip-flops were found, were not thoroughly examined. Questions about the ship's security footage, how much was reviewed, what was shared, and whether anything was withheld remained unanswered. For Rebecca's family, this lack of rigor was devastating. They felt the Bahamian authorities' investigation was more about going through the motions than genuinely seeking answers. The Coriums and their supporters began to suspect that the investigation had been intentionally downplayed, whether to protect Disney's reputation or to avoid exposing vulnerabilities in cruise ship safety protocols. In the vacuum left by the lack of a thorough investigation, theories about Rebecca's disappearance began to multiply. Each possibility offered a potential explanation, but none provided definitive answers. The official narrative suggested that Rebecca's disappearance was a tragic accident, that she had fallen overboard after venturing too close to the railing. However, skeptics pointed out that the ship's safety measures made this unlikely, and her family firmly rejected this idea. Speculation about foul play gained traction as details emerged about her last known movements. Some believed Rebecca had been the victim of violence, possibly at the hands of another crew member or a passenger. The absence of evidence pointing to a struggle only deepened the mystery, leading others to wonder if the scene had been carefully cleaned up. The idea of a corporate cover-up also gained momentum. Critics suggested that Disney, eager to avoid bad publicity, might have suppressed information or failed to cooperate fully with authorities. Was there evidence that had been overlooked or worse, deliberately concealed? Amid the swirling theories, Rebecca's family was left in limbo, desperate for answers that seemed increasingly out of reach. Each possibility offered a new layer to the mystery, but none could provide the closure they sought. Rebecca Corium's disappearance highlighted a troubling reality: the lack of accountability and oversight for crimes at sea. Cruise ships, often operating under flags of convenience, are subject to the laws of the country where they are registered. In Rebecca's case, the Bahamas' jurisdiction proved inadequate, exposing significant gaps in maritime law enforcement. Her case fueled calls for stronger international maritime regulations, with activists and advocacy groups demanding better protections for passengers and crew members. Proposals ranged from mandatory independent investigations into shipboard incidents to stricter requirements for security measures, including comprehensive CCTV coverage and improved crew training. For Rebecca's family, however, these broader discussions could not overshadow the deeply personal nature of their loss. Their fight for answers was not just about systemic change. It was about finding closure for a daughter who had been taken from them under mysterious circumstances. Despite the attention her case received, the truth about what happened to Rebecca remained elusive, leaving her family to grapple with the enduring pain of unanswered questions. Section 20. Unanswered questions. The disappearance of Rebecca Corium remains one of the most haunting mysteries of the high seas. Her story is a chilling reminder of how easily a person can vanish aboard a ship, leaving behind only fragments of a narrative. Who was on the other end of the phone call that seemed to upset Rebecca in her final recorded moments? Were they a confidant, a threat, or simply someone caught in the midst of an unfolding tragedy? What truly happened on Deck 5, where her flip-flops were found? Was this the site of an accident, a confrontation, or something more sinister? And why has there been so little transparency about the investigation, fueling suspicions of a cover-up? For her family, these questions remain painfully unanswered. Rebecca's disappearance continues to inspire speculation, but it is her family's tireless pursuit of truth that keeps her memory alive. What do you think happened to Rebecca Corium? Share your theories below.